Hi everybody, Jason from iAnimate here. In this week's snippet, we're going to talk about drag and follow through. So drag and follow through is an absolutely enormous subject, and it really does cover everything in animation. So before we actually had anything called overlap, drag, or follow through, everything started to feel really stiff and mechanical. And then when they started to discover it, it started to be overly used, and then everything started to feel like it was either had no bone structure, or it started to feel like everything was underwater, right? So for instance, like if you had like a character walking and we wanted to add some drag and follow through to the head and to the arms, we started to get like this sort of feel, like where the character's head is doing this and the arms are doing this, like and the fingers are doing this, and everything started to feel so fluid that it felt like the character had no bones, weight, and it felt like it was sort of underwater, right? So the way I approach overlap, especially like in a walk cycle, is I'll try to get the character's personality first, right? So the attitude drawing, right? So in other words, if our character is really confident or like a little bit more uppity, like maybe we'll have the axis of the head slightly more upwards like this, so it might be a little bit more in this sort of a vein, right? Or if our character is in sort of a depressed mood, like, or some, in deep thought or sad, we might have the attitude more like this, like where the character's main personality is like this. So the drag and follow through will go with that personality, right? So for instance, our contact pose here. So I've drawn out just a very basic 4 poses of our walk, right? So we've got our contact, which is basically the middle point, right? This is sort of like our midpoint of our walk. So this is actually coming down from the up position, right? So we've got the down, which is the lowest point of the walk, right? And then we have our passing position, which is basically about the same height as our contact pose, maybe slightly higher, depending on the type of walk that you're doing. And then we have our up pose, right? Which is sometimes called like a reach pose or something like that, where you're basically coming from the passive position, you got a slide up and then you come down to the contact. Okay, so we have 4 main poses in the walk, right? I'm kind of cheating the legs just so we can kind of get to this demonstration, okay? So we have our walk, right? And I've reduced the amount of frames per second to 8. So each one of these drawings is on for 3 frames, right? So just so I don't have to draw like the full cycle to give you the idea of how I approach drag and follow through with regards to the head anyway, right? I mean, like I said, it's a huge subject and we could go on for hours and hours talking about it. But this is the basic approach that I use when I'm doing a head overlap in a walk cycle. Find like my angle of head. Like, so let's say we're doing the guy that's really confident or a little bit uppity, and let's draw in like his nose or something right here, okay? We'll do that, right? So I go from the up position and I make that the same angle as the down position, right? So if I go to the down here, I want to make that the same basic position like this, right? So I'm just going to flip these poses just so I've got the basic idea here, right? So we've got that. So he's confident, right? And then because we're coming from that position in the up, we're now coming down to the contact. We're going to drag a little bit more. Now, I don't want to drag too much because it starts to become, like I say, underwater or overdone, right? So a little bit of drag, right? And if it's got a kind of a floppy nose, like maybe we'll get a little bit of drag out of that too, okay? And then it's going to come down to your squash, right? The character is going to be down, but in that same personality, right? Now going up again to the passive position, we're now going to get a little bit of a different angle here, right? So we'll go maybe basically straight like this, okay? And then the nose will sort of drag down a little bit, right? So without offsetting anything in Maya, like, sometimes like we'll get like the walk cycle, and then sometimes, I see animators offsetting things, which immediately doubles the amount of keys that you've got on your timeline. This keeps it really, really simple, right? So now let's play it. Now we've got a little bit of overlap, right? And it's basically the same sort of principle that I use for practically everything, right? So anytime I'm going to change direction, I'm going to drag the other way, and then when it reaches its destination, it's going to be straight or in that personality, and then I'm going to go back the other way and drag the opposite way. So we'll always get this sort of really nice, simple overlap, right? Now, if you feel like this is too much overlap, all I do is go into these keys and then reduce the amount of tilt on the head, right? So it won't drag quite so much, and it won't drag quite so much this way. If you want it to drag even more, if you want more overlap, if you want it to be super cartoony, then you do a little bit more tilt, right? But you don't change your actual personality drawings, like your up and your down are your personality keys, right? So let's think about that again, right? So I've got this saved out. Now, usually, like if I'm doing like a sad walk or something, I might actually have him more this way, that kind of line of action, like maybe the hands in the pockets or the shoulders are shrugged or something like this, and have his personality more down that way. But let's just, for instance, with that same type of thing, right? So like we got the down, so same thing. I'm just going to tilt his head down now because this would be the personality that we're going to do now, right? So let's say his nose is there, and then go to the up position and do the same thing. So basically that same angle, right? Okay, and then the contact is coming down from this position right here, right? So it will have it slightly tilt up, right? Right, so we could go almost like this to straight if we need to, like depending on how much we want to get, right? And then have a little bit of drag in the nose, okay? And then it's going to come down to the squash. Now we're going to come up from that position for the passing pose, right? So we'll have a little bit more drag. So a little bit more drag this way. Now again, like you don't have to overdo this, to get some nice overlap in here, right? Okay, so there's his nose, right? So now let's play that, right? So again, 8 frames per second here, and you got like a little bit of overlap,